It gives me huge pleasure to welcome our speaker, Professor Li Jiang, who is an associate professor of archaeology at Zhengzhou University in China. Her major field of research is art and archaeology of prehistoric and Bronze Age China. She focuses on the emergence, transformation, and making of early complex societies in a global perspective, as well as the art and archaeology of China's participation in the Eurasian network during the Bronze Age. And it's that Eurasian network we're going to be hearing quite a lot about. And so I give you Professor Li Jiang, who will be discussing early China and the prehistoric Silk routes. Li, over to you if you want to share your screen.
Sure, thank you very much. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. If you want to put it on presentation mode. Yep, that looks good. That looks good. Over to you.
Okay. So before I start my talk, please allow me to thank Professor Roberts for his very kind invitation. I'm truly honored to deliver my talk at the Prehistoric Society. I think all of you have heard of the Silk routes, which are famous for tying together a vast network ranging across 4,000 miles, which connected China, Central Asia, the Near East with Europe, as well as parts of Africa. Along the historical Silk routes, not only silk was traded, but also gold, silver, along with horses, wool, spices, glass, and a host of other items. What is more interesting, recent archaeological discoveries in China show that a long-distance network connecting China with the steppe, Central Asia, and even further to the west already existed as early as the 3rd millennium BC, long before any such interactions along the Silk routes were written down in any documents. And these are the prehistoric Silk routes that I'm going to present to you today. So in my following talk on the prehistoric Silk routes, I will deal with these topics. First, what was transmitted along the prehistoric Silk routes? And second, where was the prehistoric Silk routes located? And third, to what extent did societies in early China shape the interactions along the prehistoric Silk routes? With all these questions in mind, let us together explore the secrets of the prehistoric Silk routes today, with the most recent archaeological discoveries, mainly in China. First, let's look at what was transmitted along the prehistoric Silk routes. Silk, the product that China is most famous for, was already transmitted from China in prehistoric times. And here are the earliest pieces of silk from Chinese archaeological discoveries. Though their luster has faded, scientific analysis has revealed that they are indeed silk and dates them around 3000 BC. And according to scientific research, silk was already found in Egypt by 1800 BC in the High of Mummy. Recently, Chinese archaeologists have found more evidence of the world's earliest known silk fabrics at Zhengzhou, which is my hometown. And the discoveries are shown in the two pictures. And what is more important, the discoveries indicated the existence of domesticated silkworm rather than the wild ones. When it comes to millet, scholarship has shown that millet, including broomcorn millet and foxtail millet, was first domesticated in China. And as shown in this picture, broomcorn millet was originally from wild grass, And the earliest charred grains of broomcore and foxtail millet date to the turn of the 7th to 6th millennium BC from archaeological context in North China. And archaeological evidence show that millet was transmitted into the Eurasian steppe in the 3rd millennium BC, as evidenced by the discoveries of millet dating to 2500 BC in Bagash, located in today's Kazakhstan. And recent research show that millet cultivation in southern Kazakhstan could be traced back to 2700 BC, the site of which is indicated on this map. And furthermore, millet went further west in Eurasia. For example, broomcore millet reached Britain, the western end of Eurasia, in 9th century BCE. Then what did China get in return along the prehistoric Silk routes? About the same time, wheat and barley, first domesticated in the hilly flanks of the West Asia around 8500 BCE, reached Bagash around 2500 BC. And in the 3rd millennium BC, archaeological evidence of wheat and barley appeared over a wide range of dispersed regions in China, from the Altai Mountains to the east coast in Shandong. And for example, wheat was unearthed at the Tongtiandong site in Xinjiang, the date and the location of which are indicated on this map. And in Shandong, this region is at the eastern end of the Yellow River. Charred wheat came to light at multiple sites dating to the 2nd half of the 3rd millennium BC. And here comes the famous map on metallurgy. Metallurgy was also transmitted along the prehistoric Silk routes, as shown in this famous map. It originated in Southwest Asia and was transmitted across the Eurasian continent. And by the end of the 3rd millennium, it started to be practiced in China. And for those of you who might be interested in more details regarding the metallurgical network in Western Eurasia, please look into this fantastic synthesis. And carnelian beads, which are red beads, sometimes in the shape of a cigar, as we can see here, were originally produced in the Indus Valley, Central Asia, and the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. They were traded along the prehistoric Silk routes as highly valuable decorations and made their first appearance in early China around 2000 BC. Chariot making technology, which was first invented in Sintashta, a site on the steppe around 2000 BC, was introduced to the central plains of China in the last quarter of the 2nd millennium. And cowrie shells, domesticated horse, cattle, sheep, and goats were also transported from the west through the prehistoric Silk routes into China, beginning in the 3rd millennium. This map shows the locations of their origins. Domesticated cattle, sheep, and goats were from the Near East. And recent work shows, for example, that domesticated sheep reached the Central Asia as early as 6000 BC, and the DNA analysis of sheep remains in Russia raises the possibility of a Central Asian origin of domesticated sheep. Cowrie shells in early China were originally obtained from the Persian Gulf, and horses were first domesticated at Botai in today's Kazakhstan. But however, I would like to emphasize that modern domesticated horses do not descend from the earliest domesticated horse lineage associated with those at Botai. The latest research indicates that the Western Eurasian steppe, this region, as the homeland of modern domesticated horses, and its globalization first reached Anatolia and Central Asia by 2200 to 2000 BC also, then Western Europe and Mongolia soon afterwards, ultimately replacing all local populations by around 1500 to 1000 BC. All in all, along the prehistoric Silk routes, not only silk, but livestock, crops, technology, and artifacts were transported. In this sense, they could just as well be called prehistoric millet routes or prehistoric metallurgy routes, and so on. Let's simply use the term prehistoric Silk routes, since Silk routes is more well known. And how and to what extent did these new crops, livestock, artifacts, and technology impact early Chinese societies? Let's take wheat, barley, and metallurgy as examples. The arrival and acceptance of the new crops of wheat and barley not only enriched daily cuisine of early China, but also endowed ancient people with the ability to explore lands which were previously impossible to cultivate. This map shows the dates when wheat and barley reached the Tibet Plateau. As you may have learned before, temperature drops at the increase of altitude. Compared to millet, barley is way more resilient to coldness, and thus much more suitable for the severe weather in the high altitude of the Tibet Plateau. With barley planting, agriculture started to be practiced on the Tibet Plateau, which fundamentally changed the former hunting, gathering economic life there. The beginning of agriculture in Tibet contributed to the increase of population and paved the foundation for social complexity. And today, we can still see the significance of barley in today's daily life on Tibet Plateau. And this picture was taken when I visited Tibet. The view of West barley is very common on Tibet. And the main course of Tibet today, zanba, is made from roasted barley flour. Metallurgy, which reached China through the steppe at the end of the 3rd millennium, was developed into piece mold casting in the Central Plains in the first half of the 2nd millennium. Metallurgy was a significant high-tech transmitted along the Silk routes. And here is a reconstruction of open mold casting in Bronze Age Europe. And those are the open molds. And based on the primitive open mold casting technology, bivalve casting was invented, as shown in this picture. And the bivalve casting technology was further developed into piece mold casting technology after metallurgy was transmitted into China. We can have a general idea of the piece mold casting technology needed to get a typical Chinese bronze vessel. And here is the piece mold casting site, which include the inner core and multiple outer molds. Before the introduction of metallurgy, the elite people in the Central Plains could only use vessels made of pottery, even in their most important rituals. With the introduction and development of metallurgy, the elite could finally mark their status by using much more valuable ritual vessels made of bronze, as shown here. The significance of bronze vessels in ritual activities continued throughout the entire Chinese Bronze Age, as we may see from those very impressive bronze ritual sites. And they are mainly for alcohol serving. And this site is exhibited in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and the other one which is very similar with this one, was excavated from Baoji. And rumor said that this site was originally looted in Baoji and sold to America. And the piece mold casting technology was not only used to cast ritual vessels in early China, but also other marvelous bronze artifacts, such as the mysterious bronze shrines, figurines, and masks at Sanxingdui. And as those pictures show, and all the discoveries shown on the pictures were unearthed at Sanxingdui, which is in today's Sichuan. And 3 of them, this one, and this one, are from the excavation this year. And as for this newly discovered bronze shrine, please pay attention to the very small figurine in the corner. And it might be the only female figurine that was made in bronze in early China. The new items, information, and technology transported through the prehistoric Silk routes to early China affected the societies in multiple ways. It is argued that dispersal of domesticated horses in Asia during early to middle 2nd millennium BC was concurrent with the spread of chariot-making technology and Indo-Iranian languages. And the introduction of chariots transformed the military practice and methods of transportation. And here are some chariots which were first introduced to Yinxu in the Central Plains of China. And later, in the Western Zhou period, with developed horse-driven technology, and we could say the horse driven by more horses, the chariot driven by more horses. And later in the Western Zhou period, with developed horse-driven technology. And in excavations at Majiayuan, Gansu, as shown in this picture, we found chariots in Warring States period with highly valuable metal decorations. And they are here. And this cemetery, where the most impressive chariots in Bronze Age China so far were unearthed, belonged to the royal family of a powerful tribe named Yiqu. The local archaeological institute reconstructed chariots unearthed from the Majiayuan cemetery. And the expense of them was said to cost the institute millions. And here are 2 of the constructions from which you can tell how luxurious the Yiqu chariots were. They are of the high-tech, well-gilded metal decorations, lacquered chamber, and also beautiful beads, as shown here. And sacrificial activities were also enriched by new livestock. New animals, such as cattle, began to be used in ritual activities. For example, at the site in early 2nd millennium, 9 cattle were sacrificed, as shown in this picture. And when it came to the late 2nd millennium, to sacrifice domesticated cattle became extremely intensive. And let's take an oracle bone divination record discovered at Yinxu, for example. And Yinxu was the capital of the late Shang. According to this record, up to 300 of cattle were offered in a single sacrificial ceremony. And diversities of decorations were also enriched by new materials. A glimpse at the typical Western Zhou ritual decorations of high elites reveals how crucial the carnelian beads made beyond China were in, how important they were in Bronze Age China. And you can tell the large amounts that they were used. And according to the latest study of carnelian beads in Mongolia, and as shown in this picture, And this study sheds light on the establishment of long-distance trade and exchange network centered in carnelian beads, starting in the Bronze Age between Mongolia and early China. And please pay attention to this site called Kut. And it's very adjacent to the Lake Juyan and the Ajin River that I will present to you later. And in sum, early Chinese societies were transformed by the interactions along the prehistoric Silk routes in multiple fields, from the daily life of commoners to the ritual activities of the elites. And now let's come to the second question. Where was the prehistoric Silk routes located? When it comes to the topic of Silk routes, either in the prehistoric period or the historical period, the first image that comes to our mind might be the camels loaded with commodities going through the vast desert of Xinjiang. And the routes through Xinjiang were well documented in the historical period by all kinds of texts. And archaeological discoveries in the Tarimur Basin, this area, especially the Xiaohe Beauty and the Mami, especially the Xiaohe Cemetery and the Mami Xiaohe Beauty, seems to further support the conclusion that even in prehistoric times, the most significant routes were through Xinjiang. And this is a view of the Xiaohe Cemetery. And these are the pics of the Xiaohe Beauty when she was discovered. And here is a reconstruction of the Xiaohe Beauty in real life. And furthermore, Professor Farshadi's team has done a number of excellent work on the value called our region called the Inner Asian Mountain Corridor, as shown here. And it ranged from the Central Asia to Xinjiang. And Professor Farshadi has, the work of Professor Farshadi has shown that this region played a very important role in the interaction network. However, how about other regions beyond Xinjiang? Could people several millennia back in time have made other choices? And archaeological discoveries along the Ajin River indicate that the Ajin River here was an important avenue on the prehistoric Silk routes, connecting early China with the world beyond. This region, centering the Ajin River, directly borders the Eurasian steppe. It extends eastward from the Ajin River Valley to the Helan Mountains, and it includes most of modern Chinese provinces of Gansu, Qinghai, Ningxia, and the western portion of Inner Mongolia. This is a region traditionally referred to as the Northwest, as it is located northwest of Central Plains. However, considering the sinocentric nature of the term Northwest, and for those in the audience who may have known my work, it's more than evident that I'm highly against the Central Plains centric narrative, and that is shown in all my publications, including our Shimao article in Antiquity, which was published in 2018. And I would like to emphasize that every region is crucial in their own right. And therefore, I use the term Ajin River Transport Zone, shortened as ERTS, instead. The archaeological records show that objects and ideas of distant origins transmitted along the prehistoric Silk routes appeared in the ERTS in significantly large number and great diversity from the end of the 3rd millennium BC. And this was the earliest stage regarding the appearance of such items and technologies in China. A brief review of discoveries of non-indigenous objects in China reveals the significance of the ERTS in interactions along the prehistoric Silk routes. And first, let's take discoveries of wheat and barley, for example. And so far, One of the two earliest evidence of which in China is from Erz, and the other discovery around the same period was from the northern edge of Xinjiang. The earliest wheat from Erz was from a site called Donghuishan, as shown here, and this site was right by the Aijun River. And I would like to emphasize that the data of this wheat was obtained from direct dating of the wheat discovery. And this is a fact that has been constantly ignored in a lot of other research. And domesticated wheat and barley have been discovered in Erz at a growing number of sites, such as reported in archaeobotanic assemblages from 7 other sites. In comparison with other regions within today's China, domesticated wheat and barley were found in the Erz not only of an earlier period, but of a much higher frequency. And the introduction of sheep and goats follow a similar pattern. And so for as shown in this picture, the earliest discoveries of sheep were also found in Erz. The introduced animals start to make a much more frequent appearance from the late 3rd millennium BC. Domesticated sheep and goats have been found in at least 10 Erz sites, ranging from the second half of the 3rd millennium to the early 2nd millennium BC. And again, I would like to emphasize that the discoveries in the Erz were both earlier and more frequent in comparison with other regions. And so was the case of metal objects. And here are a very small collection of the metal artifacts found in the Erz, dating to the late 3rd millennium and early 2nd millennium. Their discoveries are much earlier and much more frequent than those in other regions of China. And a very interesting piece among all these bronze artifacts in Erz is the bronze mirror from the Gamatai site, as shown in this picture. And this kind of bronze mirror, which is the bronze mirror with a knob right in the middle of the back, it was originally from Central Asia. And the pattern on this mirror, which is a series of triangles filled with lines, was common among the steppe pastoralists. The earliest bronze mirror in China reflect a fusion of Central Asia and the steppe impacts. And if you are interested in the detailed discussions, please check my related articles. Both of them could be accessed online. And all the archaeological evidence shows that the Erz was a frontier along the prehistoric Silk routes compared to other societies of early China. Then why did Erz become a frontier? Let's start from the introduction of metallurgy in the Erz. Among all the innovations and technologies transmitted along the prehistoric Silk routes, metallurgy introduced to the Erz at the end of 3rd millennium was especially important. The latest archaeological discoveries show that the introduction of metallurgy more tightly bonded the Erz into interactions with the steppe along the prehistoric Silk routes. I'm talking about the 4 earliest metallurgical sites in China, all of which have been found in the Erz along the Aijun River. Recent surveys discovered two metallurgical sites, Huoshiliang and Ganggangwa, and also a copper mine, Baishantang, as shown here. And they date to the end of the 3rd millennium and early 2nd millennium. And they are all along the Aijun River. The 2 metallurgical sites, and please pay attention to their locations. The 2 sites and the copper mine are all of them are located to the western bank of the Ajin River. And random samples of slag and copper ore were collected from the hundreds present at the two metallurgical sites. The sites have extensive surface scatters of pottery, bones, seeds, and charcoal. Copper ore and residue of metal production, such as smelting slags, were also found here. Radiocarbon dating showed that metallurgical activities started at the two sites, Huoshiliang, Ganggangwa, the earliest metallurgical sites we know of China so far, no later than 2200 BC. And in last year, the Gansu Provincial Institute conducted excavations at the two sites, and more details of two sites hopefully should be available soon. And what is more interesting, a copper mine located in nearby Baishantang was also discovered here. The lead isotope records suggest that the Baishantang mine site functioned as a major source of ore for metallurgical activities at Huoshiliang and Ganggangwa. And if we take a further look at the location of the copper mine, we find that it was also along the Ajin River, just like Huoshiliang and Ganggangwa. And in addition, starting from 2100 BC, slightly later than the Huoshiliang and Ganggangwa sites, another metallurgical site, Xichengyi, which was also named Heishuiguo, began to be in use. It too is right by the Ajin River in the middle of the Gansu corridor. This site has been under excavation for years, and quite a number of significant metallurgical discoveries have been found, including slag, crucibles, and ores. And a ceramic bellows nozzle was also unearthed, indicating the existence of a furnace. And here is an image of the reconstructed metallurgical practice using a furnace and also a bellows nozzle. And this is a closer look at how the bellows nozzle was employed. In view of the burst of activity at these earliest metallurgical sites, the question arises, why did the people of the earth choose to adopt this brand new technology and put it into practice first along the Ajin River? And in my opinion, economic demand may have been a very important impetus. Ore and bronze artifacts were valued commodities along the prehistoric Silk routes, which can be observed, for example, from the ore-based trading at the Kagali mining complex on steppe, where a amazingly great number of livestock, mainly domesticated cattle, traded here in exchange of the Kagali ores. And this is a plan of shafts constructed, constructed to mine the copper ore. And here, you can have a general idea of the large scale of mining activities at Kagali back in the Bronze Age. Bronze artifacts as valued commodities can also be seen from the vast distribution of Saimaa-Tuarno bronze and their copies, which range from Mongolia all the way to Finland. And that is, as we can see on this map. And the Saimaa-Tuarno bronze is famous for its sophisticated design and technique, such as this kind of vivid depiction cast on a bronze knife, and also this kind of very unique bronze spears with a hook. And recent discoveries in China have shown that Saimaa-Tuarno bronze even reached central China in the early 2nd millennium BC. More than 10 typical Saimaa-Tuarno bronze spears have been unearthed in China. And here are some examples of them. One unearthed in the earth, this one, and the other 4 discovered in a pit in the middle Yangtze River Valley. With the geographic advantage of directly bordering on the steppe, participating in the metal exchange along the prehistoric Silk Route could obviously benefit the local economy, which contributed to the adoption of metallurgy. And in addition, those sophisticated casting molds, such as mace head molds, as shown in this picture, have been found at Xichengyi. No related finished metal artifacts have been discovered anywhere on this site. The contrast between the production of metal objects and their consumption further indicates that copper and bronze products manufactured at Xichengyi might be produced to be circulated beyond. And then how does a finished metal mace head cast in Xichengyi mold look like? I'll just give some examples of metal mace heads discovered from the cave of the treasure in Israel. And there is a huge chronological gap between the two sites. And I use this discovery just to give a very general idea for those in our audience who are not archaeologists. And all the evidence suggests that bronze artifacts produced at Xichengyi were of high economic value and circulated as commercial items. Economic growth stimulated by the earliest metallurgical production in the earth is partly reflected in the valuable decorative materials of distant origin unearthed at Xichengyi. They include pearls, cowrie shells, graphite, turquoise, and carnelian beads. As we mentioned at the beginning, cowrie shells in early China were originally from Persian Gulf. Carnelian beads were from Indus Valley, Central Asia, or Mongolia, and Central Asia could also have been a source of the turquoise found in early China. Pearls or graphite have never been discovered in China before the introduction of metallurgy. And the sudden appearance in the earth of those valuable goods from distant lands coincided with the earliest metal production there. Thus, the introduction of metallurgy not only fulfilled local economic demand, but also fueled the earth's interactions with the steppe along the prehistoric Silk routes. And the steppe market, as the motivation behind the adoption of metallurgy in the earth, also explained why all the bronze artifacts produced in earth could be traced to their prototypes on the steppe. And this phenomenon was first pointed out by Professor Mei Jianjun. And the metal production in the earth need to cater to the aesthetic traditions of the steppe market they were targeted at, which shaped the bronze style in the earth. And the economic drive also explains why domesticated cattle and sheep appeared in the earth much more frequently at the introduction of metallurgy along the Ajin River. It is highly possible that the appearance of herding animals at the time of the adoption of metallurgy along the Ajin River was the result of exchanges between livestock from the steppe and metal products from the Ajin River Valley. And more evidence on metallurgy-related exchange and trade between earth and steppe has come to light through a series of excellent work by Professor Honeychurch and Professor Jans. And Professor Jans' team has revealed a number of early carnelian bead production sites in Mongolia. And some of them are shown on this map. And please pay attention to this one. And as mentioned, carnelian beads were traded to the metallurgical sites along the Ajin River to exchange for metal products. And when we look at this site with carnelian beads discoveries, and they are shown here. And one would be amazed at how adjacent this site of carnelian bead discoveries is to Lake Juyan, which is at the end of the Ajin River. The natural landscape of Ajin River may have greatly facilitated the introduction of metallurgy into the earth and the trade with the steppe. All sources played an important role in the transmission of technology, of metallurgy across Eurasia. The Ajin River flowed right through a region with rich copper mines. The Beishan mountain area along the Ajin River is famous for its metal deposits, and the Baishan copper mine remains one of the most productive ones in this region. And the Sunan County in the Qilian Mountains, near the origin of the Ajin River and adjacent to the Xichengyi side, it also has rich metal deposits. Moreover, incidental interactions between the steppe and the earth surfaced in the early 3rd millennium BC, prior to the adoption of metallurgy. Pottery in the ceramic tradition of steppe has been discovered at the Alashan Desert, which is part of the earth, and it was found on the eastern bank of the Ajin River, as shown here. And this is a pottery. And according to Professor Honeychurch's research, this kind of Alashan pottery discovery may be of the Chemarchek attributes from the Altai regions. And as noted earlier, sheep and cattle, wheat and barley also made their first appearance in the earth around 3000 BC. And this interaction network gets more interesting if we look to the north of the earth. Latest excavations have revealed that Afanasewo entry to central Mongolia, and this is a region right to the north of the earth. And this entry happened around 3000 BC. And the Shatachulu site here, and this is an overview of the site. This site made one of the 2 major sites of the Afanasewo attributes found in central Mongolia, and the related research evidenced dairy consumption around 3000 BC. And this was the time when incidental interactions between the earth and Mongolia started. And the Ajin River, which links the middle of the Hexe corridor almost directly to the steppe, is the longest north-south waterway in this region. It formed a route between the steppe and the earth by providing a geographic path for trade and water. Thus, the Ajin River was actually an important channel of interaction between early China and the steppe, a significant prehistoric Silk Route. So after the ample evidence we have seen of interactions between the earth and steppe, one may start to wonder what kind of role did societies in other parts of early China play in the long-distance interactions related to the prehistoric Silk Routes. If we take a further look at the archaeological evidence, the importance of the regions to the east of Earth begin to emerge. We see this in the discoveries of jade, a symbol of Chinese traditional artifacts, and something that was not customary in the steppe communities. From the end of the 3rd millennium, while exotic objects such as carnelian beads and cowrie shells flew into the earth through the prehistoric Silk routes in large number, jade artifacts made their first appearance and became increasingly numerous in the earth around the same time. Researchers have identified in this region a number of workshops in which large quantities of jade artifacts were processed. And let's take the Lajia discovery, and the site is located here as an example. And the Lajia site is famous for the discovery of the earliest noodles in China. And here, as shown in this picture, as 4,000 years old noodles. And this site is also famous for the tragic deaths of the Lajia people due to a natural disaster. It might be a flood and an earthquake. And as shown in this picture, a male adult was trying to protect a baby. And jade discs, eggs, and knives, together with jade drilling cores and semi-processed jade objects, were also unearthed at the Lajia site, all of which indicates the existence of the local manufacture of jade. And other impressive jade objects were also discovered in the earths. And here, shown in this picture, is just a very small collection of them. However, there was no root of jade usage in the earth's societies before the late third millennium, when painted pottery in large quantity dominated the fashion in both tombs and settlements without a single jade artifact. Then how did earths jump from customs featuring painted pottery with no jade in the early third millennium to the custom of preference for jade by the late third millennium? Did the custom of jade usage and production in the earths simply come from nowhere? We will find the answer if we look to the east of Earth, which is the Lurs uplands of China. And traditionally, the Lurs uplands is viewed from the xenocentric perspective of the Central Plains. And this is the region for the Central Plains. And this is the region for the Lurs uplands. And from the xenocentric perspective of the Central Plains, the Lurs uplands has been considered as borderlands and peripheral to the center. And the center was considered to be the Central Plains of China. However, ongoing archaeological discoveries of Shimao, a site located here, and the related research has revealed that by 2000 BC, the Lurs uplands was home to a highly complex society centered in the Shimao settlement, which was a political and economic heartland of the territory of modern China. And this is the Shimao site, and it was located on the hilly terrain of the Lurs Plateau, covers an area of 410 hectares, and was the largest settlement across the entire Asian continent. And at the peak of the Lurs uplands, the Shimao-centered polity even conquered the Taosi-centered polity, which was the most powerful polity in the lowlands. And by the way, for the definition of uplands, highlands versus lowlands, this kind of definition was originally drawn from Professor Li Min. And here are two pieces of evidence recording the crimes committed by Shimao in taking over Taosi. A young female was murdered extremely violently in the palace of Taosi, and previous Taosi rulers were revenged during the same time. Their buried bodies were dragged out of their coffins, and sometimes their bodies were cut in half. And that's the violence and political turmoil at Taosi was conducted by Shimao, has been supported by various kinds of archaeological evidence. And the latest one is from a recent DNA research. And if you are interested, please look into this article by Professor Fu Qiaomei's team. And here is a plan of the Shimao settlement, the construction of which includes a pyramid-shaped palace center here, and 2 stone-built walls. And this is an overview of the Shimao Palace Center, which was made out of a Lurs hill. The Lurs hill was modified into around 10 platforms from here to here. And this is the bottom terrace of this hill. And the 10 platforms were of decreasing size, built atop one another. Each platform of the step pyramid was ringed and reinforced by stone buttresses, as shown in this picture. Carved stone faces and different kinds of animals were embedded in great quantity in the facades of the step pyramid. And here are some examples of the stone carvings. And some of you might be very interested in this one, and especially this kind of animal that looks like a horse. But according to zoo archaeologists, this might be a wild donkey. And here are 2 more examples of the stone carvings found at Shimao. And I would like to bring your attention to this stone carving, and especially the one in the middle. And the one in the middle looks like a water buffalo. And if that is true, this may have been the earliest visual evidence of its kind in China. And I would like to mention very briefly that at Huadizui, a site that I worked on for my dissertation, I found the earliest zoo archaeological evidence of water buffalo in China. And according to my research, Shimao elites may have ritual ceremonies at the Huadizui site, right in the central plains of China. And please note that among all the animal images carved at the Shimao Palace Center, tigers and snakes made an important portion of them. And as for their size, this picture may give you a general idea of the size of one of the stone carving. And they may have endowed the stepped pyramid with special religious power and further strengthened the general visual impression on the audience. The construction technology of Shimao stone-built walls was also impressive. And from this section, it is not hard to tell how much effort it took to build such thick walls, especially back to more than 4,000 years ago. And construction of the Shimao walls also featured human sacrifice on a massive scale. Many pits containing human heads have also been found underneath stone walls enclosing Shimao. And here are 2 examples of them. Research shows all of them are young adults, and most of them are female. So just to correct some possible misunderstandings, some reports say that all the victims are female, but that is not true. Some of them are female, but there are also male adults. And in total, thousands of people would have been sacrificed during the construction of the Shimao settlement. And what is more interesting, more than 4,000 jade artifacts have been found from Shimao. And most of these jade artifacts were inserted in the cleavages between the walls. And here are 2 pictures showing the context of the jade artifacts found at Shimao. And by category, the more than 4,000 jade artifacts include jade discs, jade spades, jade knives, and so on. And those shown on this picture just made a very small sample of all the jade artifacts found at Shimao. And more of the Shimao jade have been looted and sold to major museums, either in America or in Europe. And however, in this region, where Shimao used so many jade, there were no jade artifacts and no jade mines. There was simply no jade source in the Lurs uplands. Then where did the Shimao centered polity acquire the jade they used? The latest analysis of jade found in Shimao show that the majority of jade there may have been from the jade sources in the earth. The earth is famous for its abundance of jade sources, especially the Qilian jade source. And moreover, many jade artifacts in the Shimao-centered polity have parallels with jade artifacts found in the earth, including jade discs, jade knives, jade spades, and other categories. And in addition, a number of residential and burial spaces with the earth features appeared at Shimao, which further evidenced their direct connections. And through this network, raw jade as well as processed jade artifacts were transmitted between the two regions over hundreds of years. And in addition, the trading network between the Lurs uplands where Shimao was located and the earth is also evidenced in metallurgy. A recent research by Professor Mei Jianjun's team indicates that there is a lack of evidence of localized metal production in the Shimao culture. Shimao copper artifacts were possibly imported from earth in the form of finished products. And in my previous research, I proposed that the interactions between earth and Shimao was by the Yellow River. However, when combining Professor Jiang's excellent research, I would like to emphasize the importance of the route, this one, across the Alashan Desert, connecting the Ajin River to the Hetao area, and then further down by the Yellow River to the Shimao side. And this desert route in Chinese historical period is named the Juyan route, a significant trade route between the Ajin River and the Yellow River Valley. And the participation of the earth in the trading network to the Lurs uplands, through which a very large volume of jade and metal products were traded, may have made societies in the earth more receptive to new information, new artifacts, and new technologies from different cultures, including those of the steppe, through the prehistoric Silk routes. However, once the Great Wall was built along the origin of the Ajin River in the later Han period, the Ajin River route gradually faded away from our memory. And without archaeological work, we may never know the hidden secrets of the forgotten Silk routes centering the Ajin River. And the reconstruction of the forgotten Silk route, again, reveals the significant value of archaeology. And that is all for my talk. And thanks for your listening.
Thank you very, very much indeed. There's a lot of clapping going on virtually as well as physically. That was exceptional. For those of you who are not aware of this field of research, there are very few people in the world that can do what Professor Zhang has just done, put together that range of evidence